We'll get started in about 7 minutes here. Hope everyone's having a good day.
Still a little jet lag, but I'm getting there. Hi, Tony.
Hi.
I'll repeat this later, but the format tonight will be an introduction, then we'll have a short presentation by Tony. Then we're going to open it up for some Q&A. And for Q&A, we ask that you put your question into the chat, and then we will be reading from the chat and taking your questions. Don't start putting your questions in just yet, because it'll just flood it and we won't see all the questions. So we'll let you know when it's okay to start your questioning.
Hi, Paul. This is Duncan. Can I have a quick question?
Can we hold off on all questions for a little bit?
Okay.
I just don't want to get everyone started on questions yet. But if you want to go ahead and type it in the chat, we might be able to answer it ahead of time. There's Mitch.
Hi, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. About a 50-50 prospect, as you know.
Always is. Duncan, I saw your message. I will be addressing that actually. I will be addressing that as soon as we get started. Because that's a comment for everyone. And it is 7 o'clock here, and I know people will be joining us in the next couple of minutes. I already see we have 59 people in the room already. So, so I want to welcome everyone to the coaches meeting. Apparently this is being recorded. I guess it was set up to automatically record to the cloud. So we are being recorded here. So we will be uploading this to our YouTube channel when we get there. Right now, if you don't know, I'm Paul. I'm one of the PDPs for the Southern California region. Kathy and Sarah, my co-partners, right now are actually in Denmark at LEGO headquarters. So having a good time there and learning some great things that will be shared much later. We don't know when, but they're doing some work over there. So they won't be here tonight, but I am joined by our head referee, Mitch, and our head judges. I see JD, Jared, and Janelle. And we're also joined tonight by our Explorer extraordinaire. I don't know what we totally call Tony, but Tony's with us as well. So the process for tonight is we're going to do a little bit of an introduction and make a couple of comments. And then Tony is going to do a quick presentation on what to expect at a tournament. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A from our coaches to ask to our head referee and our head judges. And we'll see how much we get through in the hour and a half that we're here for. I would like to address the tournaments in general. We had an overwhelming response to our tournaments again this year. We are already larger as a region than we've ever been in the past couple of years, so we're excited about that. We have a lot of tournaments that are already filling up, so we cannot guarantee. So switches right now are not possible until the dust settles with everyone getting into their event, and we're still putting people into their events from signups. So I can't make switches until I know where there are spaces. Once we know that, then we might be able to, but I can't guarantee that. And some of you want a specific event, but that event is already full. So we're not able to move you to that event. But we will let you know that. In terms of when you'll find out the event you signed up for is the event you'll be put into. That's why we only give you one choice this year. And you will, it should say that on the invoice that you got from the form, from PayPal actually. It would have given you what event you signed up for. But regardless, Registration closes this Wednesday, which is tomorrow. So it'll close tomorrow night. And at that point, I will be taking all the teams and sending them out to the event managers. And the event managers will then be sending you welcome emails with all the dates and times and everything you need to know about the event. I don't know specifics about each event. We have 24 different events this year. So, and each one will run a little differently in terms of like timing and things like that, because it all depends on how many teams are at the event. So while our events do have the same, everybody will get the same experience, there are some things that we can do. If you want to change a team name, then you will do that after the event manager emails you, and you'll email the event manager who will do a name change in the event hub for you when they get that. So all that will be taken care of. But I'm going to stop talking here, and I am going to share my screen. Oops. But I need to get back to the first thing here. And I am going to turn this over to Tony. Is Tony here?
I'm here. Hi.
Tony's here. There's Tony.
Hi.
And Tony, I'm going to have you take it away.
Awesome. So I've been coaching for a while, and these are things that I've either learned from attending coach trainings or, unfortunately, the hard way. As it happens. And it's a lot of information from the coaches in my community too. So I've had a few people help me on this, which is really nice. So next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do is it's basically two sets of slides. First set is going to be about prep, like the week before competition, your teams. So we're going to do prep team, prep parents, prep you as coaches, because, you know, you're everything to these kids. So for prepping the team, you want to run them through some practices, have them practice at the robot table, have them practice with some, if you get a parent to sit in and pretend to be a judge, or if there's a teacher nearby or somebody that can just read from the example questions so the kids don't, because they know how we run as coaches. That would be really helpful for them so that it seems more normal when they go into the room or to the table. Have them, of course, finish up all their materials that they need. You could run a little discussion about how kids should handle different situations if they come up. Practice, like who's going to carry what. And really important, remind them how far they've come. They as they get closer to competition, they get sort of tunnel vision. All they can see is the end and where they're going, but they forget that they've been working on this since like August or September. So remind them, you know, you've been meeting X number of days a week. How many hours is that? Look at, you started with nothing. Now you have a robot. Now you have research and ideas and like just pep them up a little. And then I like to have, they all get a medal, and that's really, really nice because, you know, like I did this thing really cool, but like, I like to have something small that's like a souvenir or a memento, like a photo or something that reminds them of their team, of all their hard work, stuff like that. And then of course, remind them that it's more than a trophy when you go to these events. It's showing all the things they've worked on through the season. Next slide. So prepping your parents, ask them for help. Don't be scared to ask them for help. They can help with carpools. They should help get lunch. They should help organize snacks. They should organize themselves for how they're going to communicate during the day. Also prep them to be robot parents for that day. You know, teaching them that first is about the journey so that they can then reiterate it to their kids. So you get support from both sides. And then the kid feels like they grew. Make sure that they're aware of the schedule, that they get their kids to sleep and a nice healthy breakfast in the morning. Make sure their kids are wearing the team shirt, you know, that feeling of unity. Closed-toed shoes are required. And then I always recommend, because you show up in the morning, it might be cold, a zip sweater or something is better than a closed hoodie or sweater because you can still see the team shirt a little bit. And then it's also easier for when they're going into judging or the robot table that they can have their team shirt sort of ready. I also put on this slide, and I'll share the slides in the coaches folder, but at the bottom of the slide, I put that new page they added in the team meeting guide about determining champions rank. Just like it's such a nice tool to remind the kids that if they don't progress past the QT, that it's okay. They probably did really well in one area. So like if they had a crummy time at the robot table, or if they didn't answer a question the way they practiced for the judging room or whatever it is, you can, say, okay, this is what we can improve on next time, but like, look how well you did in such and such category. I don't know. I feel like it's a good tool for parents too, for when they're like, why didn't we get where we need? Just managing expectations. Okay, next slide. Prepping yourself as a coach. For me, it's a day of go, 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 go. You don't really get a chance to go back and get stuff if the team's missing it. So I always try to have like a clipboard that has the schedule and a wear watch, because the kids will, what time is it and what's next on the schedule. So I tape the schedule to the back of a clipboard. You don't have to do this, but that way it's easy for the kids to see what's going on that day. And then on the front, I have anything they might come to me and ask for, or a parent might come and ask for, like, oh, we have this idea, can we write it down? Or how does scoring work? Or, whatever it is that you think the kids or the parents might need, or even other teams, and you just have it handy. And then I'm really nerdy and I wear a backpack. So I call it the go bag, and it has the other things that we might need throughout the day. If a kid forgot deodorant, or if they need to fix the robot, if someone cuts their finger. I even put feminine products on there because I know the teams are young, but it could happen. And a lot of the schools have that in the bathroom now, so maybe you don't need it. Ruler, clipboards, the list is there. Just stuff that I found myself running back to the pit for when there wasn't much time to do something like that. Next slide. And then this is the Grandmaster packing list for taking the day of. If your team has time to help you pack, it's really cool to give them this and let them check stuff off and pack the bins to take. Or if you're splitting stuff up with some other coaches or parents, this just is a nice centralized location for what you might need. There's a few things on here I would make a point of pointing out. The team roster, you should have that printed out for when you show up to check in. If you don't, there is a way to like email, do that thing where you're going to fake print and then you make a PDF and then email it. But it's a lot easier because the dashboard's not very user friendly. It's a lot easier to just print it out ahead of time and have it ready for when you're checking in. I would also recommend secretly making emailing or getting USB drive and having the kids' codes backed up just in case they accidentally delete it, or something goes sideways. Don't tell them you have it. They should also have a copy of their code. A spare robot. If you're lucky enough to have 2 robots, I would have a spare robot. We have dropped them, and we put them back together, but knowing there's a spare is reassuring. Anything they might need for the judging room, the team pit. So there's sort of 2 pits. There's the pit where the kids have their robot stuff on display, and their core values, their project, all that stuff, and all the other teams are looking around, and the kids should go look at the other pits. But then there's where the parents are hanging out, sort of like a tailgate. That's where the food is, and the shade is, and all that stuff. It's good for kids to go have a minute of downtime over there, and then the pit for judges to see, for other teams to see. And that one's assigned. The parent pit, you should talk to your host about where it's allowed to have food, because you probably can't have it inside. There probably is a little grass area or something you can use. Next slide. Okay, so the day of, the team's nervous. Hopefully they got some sleep If you are part of the time change, maybe they got a little extra sleep, even though they've got nerves. So I like if the team arrives in the parking lot and walks in together, it sort of sets the tone for the day. Like, you know, wearing the team shirts and all that stuff, walking in as a whole unit. And then make sure that your families know, the coaches know, the kids know, everyone knows that core values start the moment you step out of your car. That's Kathy's famous saying. Everyone's judged on core values, so everyone should have a positive attitude through the day. So coach checks in. It should be the coach with the roster. You should go set up your pits, make sure the kids have enough food, try to help with any nerves that they're having through the day, go over the schedule. Maybe other teams need help, give them a hand. There should be some setup time in your schedule from the host. And then the kids should be staying together. If it's the coach going into the judging room, or if they're going for lunch, or wherever it is, they should be staying together. I sort of picture like a mama duck with all the little baby ducks. And that's what it looks like. So it's kind of an interesting situation for the parents, because they're sort of there as like food, hugs, backup. And, you know, they do need breaks and they should take them, but generally they should be sticking together as a little pod. And they should put their phones away. They're getting younger and younger with the phones, and good, you know, they can call if they need help and all that stuff, but they should put their phones away when they're not at the table, when they're not at judging. They shouldn't be playing video games. They should be walking around the pits or talking to their parents or talking to their team, maybe working on their presentation or their robot, or, you know, they should be present at competition. Next slide. Sample schedule. This is generally what they look like. Very useful. Try to show up a little early. When you show up early, don't push your way to the table or into the judging room. There's probably someone there existing, competing, trying to do their best. So just be a respectful distance, but like, go find the room, wait outside it, go find which table you're at, have a look at it, you know, plug in your robot, all that good stuff. Next slide. Okay, so in the judging room, it's a little different this year with the schedule. So I put last year's schedule and then just a write-up. I think Sarah's going to make us a pretty version of this, but basically they're adjusting for the new rubrics that came out this year with core values and how the judge mentor awards are going to be done in the judging room. So it's all there. 2 adults may enter. It should be someone that has their CPP done in the dashboard. Make sure that the kids have everything they need to succeed, and maybe practice who's carrying what in. Once you're in that room as a coach or parent, you cannot interact with the kids. They're totally self-sufficient. And in fact, it's going to be like all the judges sitting at one table, the kids presenting, facing them, and then you should sit behind the kids so they can't see you. So there's no chance of like judging secretly, or or coaching secretly, or interfering with what they can do, because they absolutely can do this. You guys have been practicing, they've been researching, they know what they're doing. And if they don't, they should feel comfortable enough to talk to the judges. The judges know that these are kids and they're doing their best, and you know, it's okay. So yeah, that's it. Oh, no photos or video in the judging room this year. We can't even ask. It's not on the table at all. So that's really good to know. So there's no reason whatsoever for us as coaches and parents to talk to the judges anymore. But as they're walking in, pep them up. As the kids are walking out, again, good job. They did really well. You know, you could even have your parents do the tunnel thing if you want. The callback cheer, all those fun things. Next slide. All right, walking up to the robot table. So there's usually a spectator area and a game area. There'll be a queue for the kids to line up. Coaches, you can stand in queue with them, but you cannot enter the table area. The kids can go in together. They'll have a set amount of time for setting up for their runs and passing inspection. I think it's going to be a little different at every site, like Paul mentioned earlier. But maybe it's all the same. And you got to remember that when you're there, the little note here is we're all doing our best to make sure the tables are set up right. They'll be level. The missions will be built correctly. If they're not, speak up, but the kids should be speaking to the referees. It hasn't happened very often that something like that happens, but the lighting might be different. Everything might be different for what you're used to, like at your meetings. Just use your practice round for your team to go check things out. You can adjust the lighting levels on your robot if you needs be. Or maybe, it's all great, but the kids should be talking to the refs about anything like that. And remember, the refs are doing their best to make sure the tables are as close to perfect as possible. So there's one practice round. That one doesn't count. It's your chance to check out the tables. There are 3 game rounds. In the 3 game rounds, the top score is the one that goes towards your ranking. If there's a tie, just like you'd expect, it ticks down. The referee at the end of the match will be reviewing the score with the kids. The kids and the ref are the only ones that should be speaking about this, but you should, as coaches, encourage them to talk to the refs. The refs are not scary. The refs are wonderful volunteers. So if they notice a discrepancy from what the ref's saying to what they think, this is their opportunity to say something and discuss with the referee. And, they'll go over it before they walk away from the table. Core values are also scored at the table, but the ref won't be going over that with the kids. And big news is it includes the spectators of the team. So heads up to everybody. Next slide. Your parents. So like I said, they have kind of this awkward situation sometimes where we're running off with coaches with our kids to go into judging, but that's really the only time that they are not allowed to go in with the kids. They can't go in the judging room, but they can watch the game. They can be at the pit. They can hang out, give the hugs, give the food. They can be the cheerful. And then as a coach, what I would do is I would have either a link or a couple pieces of paper handy for those parents that haven't been involved as much through all the meetings. They'll have a lot of questions, and your focus should be on the kids, on the team. So if you have a quick answer ready for them, maybe the rubrics or a meeting guide or just a link that you sent out that morning that tells them sort of like what's involved and what your kid is doing, it's very handy. And they should be asking you questions because it's interesting and it's fun. And then always you can, if they really, really are struggling, you can encourage them to volunteer at another event because that's, a really great way to learn. Next slide. I put some useful links. The team info sheet is not required, but if your team wants to fill one of these out or make their own and leave it with the judges at the end of the judging session, they absolutely can. It's just a basic, like, this is our team, this is our robot, this is our project, these are our core values. Little 1-pager. And then the resources, be sure to check them for updates. And if you are looking for judge questions, they're all over the internet, but these are the ones that FIRST provides. The judges will not be following it exactly, but pretty close. And that's it. Next slide is core values. Question time.
Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Before we get to questions, so first of all, if you do have a question, please put them into your into the chat and we will be answering those. I'm going to actually start scrolling back up to start reading those questions. The other thing I wanted to tag on to something that Tony said was that if you have a question about your robot game, make sure you do ask them when you are there. at the table. I always tell at events I've run that if you come up to me with a video camera and want to show me your game run, I'm going to tell you what a great videographer you are, and that's about all I'm going to allow. But I'm not going to let it sway my decision. So make sure that your team knows to ask the questions at the table, because the video afterwards will not count. So going through the questions, some of these have been answered in the chat already, but where can I find registration for the events? That was mailed out. If you didn't get that PDF, I will try to put it into the chat here. If not, email me and let me know, and I will send you a copy of that. I have 2 students under the age of 9. Can they still participate? First Lego League Challenge is 9 to 14-year-olds. So we really do need them to be 9. If you really want to talk to us about that, you have to have a meeting with Sarah, Kathy, and I about that to talk about what it means. But remember, they are going to be competing against 14-year-olds. So are they ready for that? But that's something individually that we do have to talk about. So please email us separately and set up a meeting with us. Mitch, robot game. How many team members are allowed on the table during a 2.5-minute round of the game? Is it 2 total or 2 on each side?
Yes, it's 2 on each side at a time. So if you have 10 members on your team, you're going to want 5 on the left and 5 on the right, and they can tap in and out over the course of the game as long as you only have 2 on each side at any one time. And from game to game, you can change. You know, if 3 kids are on the left and 2 kids are on the right for game 1, and you want to put them in a different order for game 2, that's fine, just so long as they don't change sides during the game itself.
Awesome. For any of the judges, can we use printouts or handouts instead of trifolds?
Yes, use whatever you would like, whatever your students would like. Trifolds are great, printouts are great, models are great, slides are great, so long as you don't need technology to show those slides. Whatever you would like, as long as it is self-contained, is amazing.
Do team pits affect the score? Anybody want to grab that one?
JD?
Well, the judges do not walk the pits, but the volunteer staff do. And we do like to see, and there is at some tournaments, they judge for the pits, they give an award for the pit. I know at Western Edge we do for pit design. I think it's a great team spirit opportunity for the students to decorate the pit. And I think you should still encourage that. So yeah.
I guess that said, team created decorations are fantastic. It doesn't have to be an official team banner or anything like that. However they would like to decorate their pit, it's great.
And the size of the pit will vary from tournament to tournament. You could have at one tournament, you may have a 6-foot table. At one tournament, you might only have a 2-foot table. You might be sharing a lunch table. So your event manager will let you know how big your pit size is so that you know if you want to decorate what you can bring. Can we bring 2 robots to the table and have one robot doing missions at a time?
No, you cannot. You can bring more than one robot to the event, and you can have more than one robot in your pit, but you can only bring one robot to the table. If you choose to bring different robots to the table for different games, that's your decision, and that's fine. That's why we do inspection before each game. But only one robot, and be mindful of the number of motors and so on that are allowed per robot.
How many coaches can go into the judging room?
I think we said, and Paul can. I thought we said 1. Are we at 2?
It's 1 must go in. You can have up to 2 in the room, but no more than 2. Where can I find this video and other resources? It's in the coaches folder. I'll send a link. I'll put the link in chat in a little bit. And the videos are on our YouTube channel because they were taking up so much space in the folder. So we do have a YouTube channel, and all of our coach meetings are posted there. Again, right now we cannot do any switching of events, but this one says, can they come after their competition? Yes, they can. They can show up at any time. And I know there was a question I think I skipped up above, which asked, can you go to another event and observe? And you can go to other events. All our events are open to the public, but really you can only see the robot game at the other events. You can't go into judging rooms or into judging areas.
Can I
Unless you
add
vol-
on? Sorry.
Unless you volunteer to judge.
Well, yes.
Sorry,
I wanted to add on about the pit judging. There's not like official pit judging, but there's that urban lore about the person with the broom. So there's this story about the at some events there's someone going around sweeping, but they're actually watching for core values. It's a secret core values judge, urban legend. But it's not untrue. Like if someone that's volunteering is walking around the pits and notices excellent behavior or poor core values, they do bring it back to the judging room.
Yeah, that's true. The behavior in the pits can be judged, but the pit decorations aren't
Right.
judged.
Those are for fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask a question, but I can't put anything in the chat. Is there, because I know you're putting the links in the chat, and I don't have access to the chat somehow on this. Is there a way you guys will be able to email the slides or something like that to all of us?
They will all be put into the coaches folder, and the last email that I sent out has the coaches folder link on there. So you
Okay.
should check there.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. What do you mean by coach mentor Q&A?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So the last few minutes, the judges will be asking the team if they would like to nominate their coach or mentor for an award. We will be giving awards out to the coach and mentor. So this is for your team to answer, and the judges will take notes, and then the head judges will read these nominations and decide on who will get the award.
And I'll just add to that, there's nothing specific for your teams to prepare for that. The judges will ask them a couple of easy, quick questions they should be able to do with no problem. So really no need to
Yeah,
practice
not
that
stress,
or prepare
no.
anything.
Yeah, not tricky at all.
Mitch, this is going to be for you. For the water sample, is there a requirement that it needs to be placed on the mat in a certain orientation? Example, yellow needs to be aligned with the black line on the mat.
Yeah, there's a requirement for me, but not for you. When we set up the field before the game, we're going to have the top of the water sample model lined up with the black line across the circle. But to score on that mission, all you have to do is move that model off the circle. And we don't care what position it's in after that.
Okay. Another one, for mission 1, can you clarify what is the angle of the coral tree when lying on the mat? Is the high side of the ring near the wall or away from the wall?
Right. The team will be able to tell the referee how they want that oriented before the game starts. So the big factor, I think, is going to be whether that circle is lying horizontal or lying vertical. And the team tells the referee, we want it this way, and the referee should put it that way. There are other places where things are oriented at the referee's discretion, and you can ask, and the referee probably will just say no. That's up to me. But this is the one where you are allowed to say how you want it before we start.
Is there, if there are young siblings, i.e. 6-year-olds, will their behavior potentially affect core values too?
Are they just observers? Is that what this
They're
question
just,
entails?
yeah, I'm guessing they're
Yes,
just
well, if they're,
observers.
well,
There's
if they're
6
wearing
or-
the team T-shirt and being disruptive, it would be hard for volunteers to know if they're not part of the team. So that could be a tricky one if they're wearing a team T-shirt.
I think, and I'm going to be blunt on this one. I think mostly what we're looking for are for coaches and parents not to be so overbearing and start yelling at the volunteers, yelling at the referees, yelling at the judges. That's what will start affecting it. Yelling at your team members. And I have seen that when a team comes off the field and coach is going, I can't believe you didn't make this, or you can't believe you scored so low. That could affect the core values of the team. We want to be positive with the kids. Can you clarify robot design? Is it always in line with robot game, or is it related to the innovation project too?
All right, I'll take that. So the robot design judging is totally separate from the robot game that's played on the tables. And in fact, a lot of times they're kind of going on. You have judging interleaved with your robot game, and the design judges don't know how your robot is doing on the field. So I should say first, the way to know what the judges will be looking for is to look at the rubrics, because that it's basically the outline of all the things that the judges are looking for. And so you can take a look at the robot design rubric to get an idea of what kinds of things that they'll be looking for. But in general, it's sort of about the process that your team went through from when they first got their mission challenges and the instructions. How did they decide what missions to do, what kind of robot they needed, what kind of attachments they needed, what kind of code they needed, and then how did they build it, how did they test it, how did they improve it as they went along, that kind of thing. Just the process of the whole thing is really what the robot design is about. It's about the design process.
Okay. Where can I find a team roster form? Actually, what you would want to do is log into your First Inspires dashboard, and then under the team, you'll find one that says team roster. And you should have all the kids and their parents, or their parents actually, register them online so they become part of that team roster. And then you'll want to print that team roster out. That's the best way to go about doing this, is to have them register online. What is the core values trifold?
I believe the core values trifold is not necessary. Is that correct, Jared? For this, in the past that they did
That's
have it?
correct.
Right.
Yeah, if they make one, it would be only for their pit area.
Yeah. It's not part of the presentation.
We don't have a presentation for core values during the judging session.
Okay. Can the presentation slides be shared with coaches? Yes, it will be shared with coaches. We just answered that. Is the total presentation time 28 minutes?
No. So the judging session may take up to 30 minutes. It's possible for it to be a couple minutes under that. The timeline is not extremely firm. So what is really firm is the 5-minute project presentation. And then that's followed by roughly 5 minutes of project Q&A, roughly 5 minutes on robot design, and so on. So that might fluctuate by a few minutes, but it should add up to 30 if we do our math right, and hopefully we'll get you a pretty looking flow chart pretty soon.
All right. We have some weird parts from other Lego sets. Is there a way to pre-authorize them?
They're already pre-authorized. If they're
This is
Lego products in original condition, you can use them.
blaming us.
If they're not electric Lego products in original condition, you can use them.
Yep. As long as it says Lego on it, it's good to go. Mitch, can you tap members in and out within a single round?
Yes, you can, as many times as you like, as long as they don't change sides.
Can the students hang items on the side wall of the table as part of home?
No, everything after inspection, you're going to put your equipment in the left home and the right home. It's okay for some things to be hanging over the left wall and hanging over the right wall, but not hanging on the wall itself, because if you've got something clipped to the outside of the wall, that's outside home.
We did that one. That one. We can do that one. During the robot game, can team members pass attachments to members on the other side of home area?
No, nothing can be handed, or I prefer the word passed, from the left side to the right side, except by the robot. Only the robot can move things once the game has started. Outside home.
Yep. Is there any resolution for mission 10 that goes across tables? It is impossible for the support bars holding the submarine to be across both red arrows from the two mats.
Yeah, I haven't actually been physically in the presence of two tables at one time, so I'm taking your word for it that this is twisty and a problem. I'm not aware of any I'm not aware how bad the problem is. I'm not aware of any resolution to it. What we're going to do is set it up as best we can. I'll point out that 30 points are just from raising the flag on your side, and the other 10 points are if the submersible is visibly more on one side than the other. I think this is a good opportunity for me to say again that we're going to give you the best possible table and the best possible mission models we can. But what's looking really, really good at 8:15 a.m. is going to look pretty tired and haggard at 3 p.m. And if your robot needs perfect conditions to accomplish its missions, then your robot is under-designed.
Do the sites allow teams to bring in their own practice robot game table? That's a question for the event manager. Some do, some do not, based on the space that they have for the event. So that is a question you'll have to ask them.
Let me also just add on to that. If you bring a practice table to an event, you take full responsibility for it, obviously. But if you're willing to offer it up as a resource that other teams can also use, your tournament director's probably more likely to say, yes, go ahead and take up some space, because you'll be doing a service to some other teams as well.
Which shows great core values, by the way.
Let me add one thing to that too, and that's that most of the tournaments will have at least one practice table available, but it's extremely likely that any movable parts will not be there. The coral segments, the krill, anything that can be picked up and taken away, we're probably not going to put out in the first place. So do bring your materials too for when you're practicing.
Yep. I just typed something in the chat and okay, there we are. If you didn't get the PDF about how to register events, I have actually just put that into the coaches folder, and in the chat, I just put a link to the coaches folder. So you can go there and you could look for both how to register for events and how to use the express enrollment to put your team members onto your team roster. So both those directions are there on that in the Google folder now. When kids are going to the judge room, they have to set up everything by themselves. Adults can't help, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
That
is correct. You should try to use materials that the kids can carry in their own hands. It's really awkward when they're carrying things that are too heavy, and then someone tells the adults for the very first time that they can't carry them. Yes, kids need to set up their own judging rooms.
For mission 15, research vessel, will the score still be counted if samples are put into the vessel by hand while the vessel had already been taken into one of the home areas?
Yes, if the vessel is in home and if the those movable items, the movable mission models are in home, then yes, you can put those things in the boat by hand, and then the robot can move the boat out.
When will we be notified from the event director? Within the next week, I figure by next Friday. We've got to still get all the information out to them and turn it around. But you should be hearing from them within a week. If the robot dies, how can kids charge it to, or how can kids change it to the backup robot in the game?
Wait, I've got that one. I have it in the list of stuff to bring. You should bring a power bank and plug in that robot after every match. Just plug it in, plug it in, plug it in. And I would even go as far as to say practice doing it in your meetings. Have the power bank there, practice it ahead of time. It should be habit. If you need to put signs all over wherever you're practicing, plug in the robot.
The kids on our team are 13 and in 8th grade. Can they compete in the challenge program in 9th grade if they are still 14? If not, the kids really enjoy the innovation part of the program. Do you have any other recommended programs that are innovation focused?
On the participation rules part of that, no, it's both an age and a grade requirement in the United States. So they are done at the end of 8th grade. There are competitions in the spring that are not part of the official season. So there's more on that will be available. First has First Tech Challenge available for middle and high school, as well as First Robotic Competition. Neither of them quite have an innovation project in the same way, but both have a lot of other like process-focused components, right? There's engineering notebooks and outreach and all kinds of other components of that beyond the robot in those competitions as well.
We've experienced pushy parents or coaches shoving our team out of practice round. Tournament was running behind and our team was up first. And then pushy parent team got core values award. Kind of disheartening. Yeah, very much so. And if you do see something like that, let a volunteer know. And they'll watch for that. Can't guarantee it still won't happen, but they will definitely keep an eye out for that.
Specifically, look for your tournament director, the head ref, or the judge advisor, kind of a key person, and try to get them aware if something is egregious, and let them know as early as possible. We all often hear about things that happen days after an event, and it's really hard for us to rectify it. But if you let those key decision makers know during the event, you're more likely to get a resolution that you'll be satisfied with.
Can the team move the robot by hand to the starting point between each mission? Do we lose points if we do so?
Yes and yes. When the robot is in home, you can handle it as much as you want and position it as much as you want and do whatever you want to do before you launch it again. When the robot is outside of home, if you touch it, if you interrupt it, you can bring it back to either home and lose a precision token. So the only place you can handle the robot without penalty is inside home. And we expect to see the robot navigating its way to home all by itself. It needs to be completely inside the home area before you touch it.
Can kids pick up like the shark by hand when it's in the operation area outside the mat?
By operation area, I think you mean home, which of course is the black strip along the left side as well as the launch area. And yes, once the shark is completely inside home, you can touch it. Once any mission model is completely inside home, you can touch it.
When should students nominate their coaches? I remember that we had a form to fill out.
The form is no longer going to be part of the season. The judges will be asking your students.
Mission 2, there are 2 tasks. Shark needs to jump off and then come back to the center board mat. Could the team move the shark by hand once it's jumped off to the home spot and then try to move it to the center?
Okay, so inside home, yes, the team can handle the shark. Outside home, only the robot can move things. So you can put the shark on the robot and have the robot drop it off in the shark habitat. But the team technicians themselves cannot move anything outside of home.
What if they don't have internet? I don't know what that's referring to. If
Paul,
the
I
venue-
think-
The event.
I think that came at the time you were talking about youth member registration. So I'm going to answer
Oh.
it as if that is when it came, and if not, go ahead and clarify in the chat. The youth member registration does require the parents to fill out a consent and release form, and that form is electronic. There's a way, if you have done this in the past, it used to be quite complicated. You can now do it in a very simple way with a QR code or an express link. And I'll send instructions for that in the chat in just a minute. That's something that you as the coach can do and generate that QR code for them. I'd encourage the parents to maybe come into a team meeting and fill it out there. It should only take them a couple minutes to sign. If they really can't do that, and there's no way to get them online, contact your tournament director and they can kind of discuss your options with you. But definitely encourage you to use that express link, and it really should just take a couple minutes.
And Jared, I've already put in a link in a PDF in the folder with that. Also, they don't need internet for it. If they have a cell phone, they can do it. Or if they could come in and use they could use your computer or someone else's cell phone. It's a very simple process. I know at my school, they got 20 parents through it and it took all of 10 minutes. So it's not a hard process. Do parents have to sign the consent and release form? Yes, they do, or at least e-sign it. When they do the express enrollment, it's automatically signing the consent and release form. Should team bring the robot physically to the judging room, or instead have slides or pictures to explain? Basically, should they demo the robot in action to show its capabilities?
They do not need to demonstrate the robot running. There will not be a game table in the judging room, but it is encouraged that they bring their robot and their attachments, any jigs that they have, all of their things, because I think one, because it's nice for the judges to be able to see it, and two, I think it helps the kids maybe when they're talking to have something in their hands and something to point to, just because I think it helps them be a little less nervous if they have something to do with their hands while they're talking. But yeah, I think it's not required, but I think the judges will be able to get a better idea of kind of the scale and different things about the robot by being able to see it in person.
How many judges will be there at the table and presentation?
So first, just some terminology to clarify. At the robot game table, there are referees, not judges. And so each game table has one referee, and then there's a head referee that is overseeing all of the tables. In the judging room, you have judges, and you'll have a minimum of 2, usually 3, and occasionally more than that. But generally 3 is what you're going to see at most events.
Okay. Is there a minimum robot game score that teams need to have to be considered to advance?
No. So there is no threshold. There used to be, if you've been doing this for a while, you have to be in a certain percentage. That is no more. But what that was in Tony's presentation and is all over all of the materials are the 4 areas are weighted equally. So that means the robot game performance is 1/4, 25% of the team's advancement potential. And so you can't be at the bottom, right? Since that is an equal factor with the others, but it's not a specific cutoff.
There's a whole page for us in the team meeting guide or engineering notebook. It might even be 2 pages of it. It breaks it down really well.
We are a new team. How can we find robot model options?
I guess I'll chime in with that. There are a lot of different options of different styles of robots and different styles of attachments. You know, like lifting attachments and twisting attachments, and ways to incorporate your attachments with your motors to be able to move in certain ways. You know, there are a lot of I've seen a lot of YouTube channels that have it, web pages. There are books, you know, that have, you know, sort of pictures and building instructions. I don't know. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? I will just say that for your robot design judge, if you do use like an online resource or another resource where there are kind of instructions given, do make sure that your team understands how it works, that they're not just like blindly following the instructions but can't explain like, you know, why a certain attachment has, you know, those gears, or, you know, that, you know, however it moves or however it makes the robot accomplish the mission. They should understand it, even if they did follow someone else's instructions to build it.
One more source. If you're programming with the Spike Prime software built into the software, are some great tutorials for building as well.
Is it possible to get the contact for the event director? They will be emailing you. We don't send out their individual emails to you until they email you. All right, let's see. We have a few questions here. At the event, the teams will be doing 3 rounds of the robot game. First, or the two presentations first, or will it be a mix? It is definitely a mix. You could end up doing your presentations first and then the 3 rounds. You could do a round, then your presentation, then the last 2. It just all depends on how the schedule runs and where your team is put on that schedule. We already talked about that there will be 3 judges.
Paul, let me just add one thing there. I just want to make clear, there's a practice round and then 3 scored rounds. Every team does its practice game first. And then every team does its round 1, then every team does its round 2, every team does its round 3. So you're going to have downtime during each round, which you'll be spending back in your pits, recharging your robot, talking to other teams, whatever. But it's not like you're just going to go 2.5 minutes, boom, 2.5 minutes, boom, 2.5 minutes, boom, and then you're done with the tables for the day. It's going to be those 4 2.5 minute opportunities are going to be spread throughout the day.
Are the judges the same for all events? No. Every event has their own set of judges, though we will sometimes see a judge show up at multiple events, but no, they all have different judges. During our presentation setup, can we ask the judges to stand up for a few seconds?
I think that if your presentation is interactive, that's great, and there's no reason you can't ask for that. But just keep in mind that some judges may have like a mobility limitation or something that might prevent them from that. So it shouldn't be maybe super critical to your presentation, but maybe the students can ask them to stand if they're able, or something like that. But I think it's fine conceptually.
If a student leaves mid-season due to scheduling conflicts, can we continue to use that student's work?
I think yes. I think if students can speak to that story a little bit, it would help. You know, if judges start to ask questions about it and the students are only able to respond, well, so-and-so worked on this and they're not on the team anymore, that's probably not going to be great. But if the students were working on it together and, you know, they took it and kept iterating on it, I think that's A-okay.
Age limit question. If a student is born after November 2nd, 2009, but before January 20th, 2010, are we allowed to compete at the QT regionals and our championship? What is the cutoff date?
I got it. So the as the terms and conditions person on this call, the official rule is that it's January 1st of the year the challenge is released. That's when the age is determined. So it would be January 1st, 2024. But the lovely document also says that our program delivery partners get some reasonable discretion over this. So I would say if your student turns 14, or rather is 14 at the start of the season and turns 15 in the middle of the season, I don't think we're in the business of preventing them from competing here. We would, if they're still in 8th grade, they were 14 when the challenge started and they turned 15, say in October or November. I'm not going to do the math to see what this example really was, but that would be totally fine.
No, you're absolutely right. And just so you know, when you get to some of the off seasons, there are kids that are already, you know, we say 14, but they're already 16 by the off season and they're still competing, and that's fine. It's just that January 1st date, what their age is on that January 1st. Did I hear it right that team is allowed to put things, equipment collected from the mat onto the boat by hand?
Okay, let me back up for just a minute because equipment and mission models are not the same thing. Equipment is the stuff that the team brings to the table, including the robot. The mission models are what are on the table when you arrive. So what you heard me say was for mission 15, you score points by picking up mission models from around the table, putting them in, well, moving them scores points, putting them in the boat, in the vessel, scores even more points. If your team strategy is to pick those things up, bring them home where you're allowed to touch things, and while they're in home and while the vessel is in home, you physically by hand put those in the boat, that is allowed.
Okay. A question about refunds. So if you accidentally double paid or overpaid, we are in the process of processing all those refunds. My hope is to have them done by the end of this week. So some of you have already received it. Some of you, if you didn't, I am trying to get them done by Friday. If you have not received it by Friday, please send me another email so I can look into it and find out why. But we are working on those as fast as we can. If you have EV3, there are basic builds on the sites as well. Yes. Okay. Are the solid lines that borders the launch area considered part of the launch area? Can we launch our
Yes.
robot when the robot is touching the line?
Yes, not over the line, but above the line, as seen from above, yes. I shouldn't say not across the line, but over the line.
Can I wipe the table before the robot game started to make sure the table surface is in its best condition?
What I would say is ask your tournament director or head referee before the day starts. Different places have different feelings about that. I really don't like, a lot of the places don't like the teams touching anything outside of home the whole time you're at the table. But we do try to wipe everything down and clean everything off between rounds. Maybe as a sign of gracious professionalism, you want to go to the tournament director that morning and say, hey, between rounds, can we help you wipe down the tables and the mission models? So talk to the local authorities and see what they're going to allow you to do. I've seen it done. I've seen it not done.
I also want to add to that, plan for the worst conditions, right? Plan that you're not wiping it between rounds and no one's wiping it between rounds. Have that variance tolerance built into your design and your programming as much as you can. But with that said, before a round begins, if anything doesn't seem like it's within kind of the acceptable tolerance, your students should absolutely ask the refs about that before they give their thumbs up. That's why they're giving a thumbs up, to say, you know, we've set up our things, we've looked at the board, and everything here seems good to go. So if there's something, you know, obviously wrong, they should absolutely flag that for the refs before the round begins.
Is the black strip considered home, the area outside the game mat? And yes, it is. That is true.
Yeah, I like to say lowercase b and lowercase d is your home. So it's that black strip on each side and the quarter circle launch area. That's all home.
My team asked if it's okay to leave the robot on the field and let the timer run out so they don't lose a precision token. What advice should I give them?
You tell them, yes, that's perfectly allowable. And in fact, what they can do is tell the referee, we're done, we're not doing any more. And the referee will say, you can go ahead and turn it off to save battery.
complete inside home, do you mean every part of the attachment?
Short answer is yes. There was an update that said that when the robot returns home from the field, if any part of the robot or anything it's in contact with extends out over any wall, that's considered completely in home. But otherwise, yes, completely inside home means the completely inside.
And Mitch, while we're talking about updates, can you please share the newest update, which is a major
Yeah.
change from
Which is the major
what we've said
change.
before?
Okay, update 9, which came out October 1st, is about the Raise the Mast mission. You are all aware, I'm sure, that you can raise the mast, get it past that clip, but then it can keep going and actually swing almost all the way over to the other side. What they've done in this rule change is now that would not count as raised. It has to be upright and touching. It says upright and resting on the latch is how you score. And if it goes beyond and swings all the way over to the other side, that will not score. And that just came out a week ago.
Yep, and that's been a big debate in the FIRST community.
Yeah, can't say I'm happy about it, but not.
Yeah,
Came from the
little more
big Lego in the
challenging,
sky.
a little more challenging, but it'll be fun. Can the robot be handed from one side to the other? No, we've already talked about that. It must be sent. Can kids touch robot when it's in launch area, or robot should be fully in the home area?
The launch area is part of home. So yes, it's expected that you're going to be touching it while it's in the launch area.
For mission 15, does the research vessel need to be latched to gain the points for getting the samples in the cargo area, or the ship location does not input the sample collection points?
Okay, let me get that language right in front of me because the rules mean exactly what they say. So it says, okay, if any of the following, or at least partly in the cargo area of the research vessel 555, regardless of where the vessel is. And if the vessel is moved over and the latch is at least partly in the vessel's loop, that's 20 points. So those are independent conditions. If the vessel is still in home and has the sample and trident and treasure chest in it, you're going to get points for that. And if the vessel is all the way over and latched with no cargo in it, it's going to get the points for being latched and whatever all else in between.
Will judges look at
thumbs up? That's good.
Will judges look at binders or engineering notebooks during judging, or will they not have time to view these?
Yes, they will look at it.
Yeah, generally, I mean, as the robot design judge, generally, if there's an engineering notebook, I will be, kind of flipping through it and looking through it during the project presentation and during the core values Q&A and vice versa. That sort of while another judge is talking, it gets passed around to everybody.
You should know though, the judges have very little time between teams. And so whatever information you really want to make sure the judges know, you should cover during the presentation. Even if that's a matter of saying, we did X, Y, and Z analysis and the details of that are available in our binder. Tell the judges what's there, rather than handing them a packet and expecting that they're going to read cover to cover, because that they certainly will not have time to do. But it is a super helpful reference.
Good point.
And most of the time, the judges will not hold on to the notebooks. They will hand it back to you right then and there. Yes, November 10th is the last day of qualifying events. In the challenge level, there's the qualifiers, and then those that do well will move on to regionals, which are held in December. And then those that do well at regionals will go to the championship that will be held in January. Can a team member join one FLL and one FRC team?
Yes, provided the student meets the participation rules in both programs. So there's no rule in FLL that says that a student cannot be an FRC student, and there's no rule in FRC that says a student cannot be an FLL student. But both have age and grade considerations that you should look at.
Mitch, does the boat need to be pushed back onto the field?
Okay, if you look at the scoring conditions for mission 15, it doesn't say anything about where the boat is. It just says points for what's in the boat, in the cargo area of the boat. So you can score, if you put things in the boat, then you can score regardless of where the boat is, whether it's in home or whether it's somewhere out on the field or whether it's latched in the port.
Would it be safe to say that any problem connected to the ocean is relevant to the submerged theme based on the cartoon, or does the problem have to involve a problem faced by ocean explorers?
Yeah, this is a good question. So the cartoon is meant to provide some inspiration for specific projects and specific solutions, but the official challenge is written in text, right? So what it says in the challenge document for this year is that a team is to, I'll read straight from it, dive into a problem faced by people who explore oceans. We are not in the business of trying to disqualify teams for not meeting that definition. Our job is to try and get ourselves to the point of understanding how it does, and the team should be able to explain how it relates to that theme. Teams are not going to be discounted for not meeting that definition, but certainly what you're aiming for is a problem faced by people who explore the oceans. So something that's more broadly ocean related and doesn't relate to people or exploration is not super on theme for this year.
To find all the updates, and it's been put in here a couple of times, but you can find that always on at firstinspires.org. Go to the season and look at season updates. And I would recommend checking that once a week at least. Do all team members need to fill out their engineering notebook at each meeting, and how might that be scored?
I'll chime in on that one. Having an engineering notebook at all is not a requirement. Although there are quite a few questions, at least in the robot design rubric, that you get more points the more evidence you have of something. And so if you have good notes of sort of your design process, maybe prototyping or test results, that kind of thing, that goes a long way toward helping provide that evidence. And so I always encourage, the more documentation is the better. And the other thing is that there are at least 2 questions in robot design and probably in project as well that talk about whether everybody on the team was able to be involved in the building and coding process, and if they were all like if all ideas were included, and people felt like they were heard, that kind of thing. And so I think as much as you're able to put into the notebook, or say out loud in your presentations about how everyone was involved, is the better. But not required.
Can you clarify, based on the judge's innovation rubric, if only a specialist is required for feedback, or if sharing with other adults and peers is fine?
Yeah, so this is actually a significant change to the project rubric for this year. So the rubric says that a team should share their ideas with others, collect feedback, and include improvements to their solution. And then the specific items in that line say solution shared with one person or group, solution shared with multiple people or groups, etc. So this is a change from the past. It's not specifically asking for experts. It's also not specifically asking for end users or people who would benefit. But those groups are still really important constituents in a project. So What the judges are looking for is, did the team share the project with people who it made sense to share the project with, and what did they get from that? So for some projects, it's going to be really easy to talk to the end users of the project. Maybe the end users of the project are middle school kids, and they can ask their friends and survey them, and that will help them talk to the end users. But if the end users are like highly trained deep ocean explorers, they might not be able to get into contact with them as easily. Similarly, maybe the experts that they're trying to talk to are, people who use like computer technology of certain kinds. Going to be easier to talk to than people who like have experience operating thousands of feet below the Earth's surface. So the judges understand that not everyone is equally easy to talk to, and really we're looking for, did the team make an effort to talk to people who could give them helpful feedback on their ideas?